Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us for our Sixth Form live YouTube stream. My name is Matthew Moberley. I'm head of Sixth Form, and this is Bethan Morgan, assistant head of Sixth Form. I teach history at Christopher Whitehead, and Beth, or Mrs. Morgan, for students, teaches biology. We both teach A-level, and we've both decided that we are going to present to you this evening to answer some of the questions that we get frequently asked by parents and students of Year 11. The structure of this evening is going to be a brief introduction from myself, followed by questions that will be asked off camera. These are questions submitted in advance by some of our internal parents from Christopher Whitehead. I'm then going to guide people to our website, which contains our application form and a series of videos and course information, booklets and leaflets for people to get more information in their own time. We hope that the evening will run smoothly. We will be recording this and we will send it out to all parents and to local schools as well, for if anybody needs to catch up and watch this in their own time. I'm going to hand over to Mrs. Stevens, assistant head teacher, who is across the table from me, who's going to start by asking some questions that parents are asking.
Good evening, everyone. The first question that I've got, possibly for Matt, is what's the unique selling point of Christopher Whitehead Sixth Form? Okay,
so the ethos and unique selling point of our Sixth Form, I think, and listening to our students as well, is that we're a school Sixth Form that is large enough to offer a broad and balanced curriculum and range of opportunities for students, whilst being small enough to remember the individual and treat every student as an individual and work with them rather than treating them as just another person or a statistic. So we've got 220 students in the Sixth Form who Mrs. Morgan and I see day in, day out, and go around and talk to and get to know very, very quickly within the school year.
Okay, I'm going to ask something about courses. We had quite a few queries about courses. What new courses are there on offer this year? I think if we just start off with that, what else can we offer then?
Okay, so our curriculum, you'll be able to see from our website all of the courses. There are in excess of 35 post-16 courses at the college. New for this academic year that we're in now, we've launched a applied BTEC law course for the first time because of popular demand. We've got a health and social care course that has transformed from one A-level equivalent to now being offered at 3 different levels of a single, a double and a triple full vocational option. We've also introduced a number of other BTECs to supplement other departments. So, for example, in psychology, alongside our A-level psychology course, there's now a BTEC psychology course, which is more geared towards students who are apt at sciences, but are maybe less proficient at the extended writing than you would need to be in the full A-level psychology course, for example. And likewise in sport and PE, we have a PE course and we have a BTEC sport course. Notable difference between the PE and the BTEC sport course is that in the PE course, students have to be proficient in and play sport at a competitive level outside of school, whereas for the BTEC sport course, that's not a necessity.
Okay, thank you. There's a question here about the EPQ, the Extended Project Qualification. How can that be of benefit to a student here? What is it?
Okay, so the Extended Project Qualification, if we go back a few years, was designed by universities who decided that students coming from Sixth Forms weren't quite trained enough in independent research and self-motivated study. So the Extended Project Qualification is equivalent to approximately half an A-level, and students can do it in any area that they're interested in, as long as it's not a direct link to one of the courses that they do. So they couldn't do something on a particular module of biology or their history coursework. They couldn't resubmit their history coursework as an EPQ, but it's largely a dissertation-based, independent research-based project. They can submit a portfolio, they can submit an essay, or they can submit what's called an artifact, which could be a video, it could be something that they've made, it could be a performance that they've produced, and then a shorter write-up. But it's highly regarded amongst universities. Not all universities actually accept the points from the extended project as within their course offer, but many of them, even if they don't accept it at face value with points, they do give reduced offers for people who have got the extended project and it's also a brilliant way of demonstrating your interest in a subject. So if you're interested in going into medicine, for example, doing an extended project this year on the development of a vaccination for COVID would be nothing to do with your A-level biology or chemistry, but would show an excellent interest in medicine and would get you some points for your university application as well.
And am I right in thinking it's graded like A-levels are?
It is graded, yeah. It's graded like A-levels are, from A star down to E, but it's actually, it's not worth the same as the full A-level. So it's a rough comparison is it's worth the same as half an A-level or an AS.
Fantastic. Can students take 4 A-levels at Christopher Whitehead? And if so, do they keep on with 4 A-levels right to the end? What's your recommendation and what happens?
Would you like to answer that one, Miss?
Yes, yeah. So lots of students opt to start with 4 A-levels because they're unsure of which 3 they will take to the final conclusion of A2 exams. But mostly by this stage in the year, so 6-7 weeks in, they've chosen the 3 and they've dropped 1 down from that 4. There is no requirement from universities for students to leave with 4 A-levels. And in fact, universities would very much prefer 3 strong A-levels than 4 pretty good A-levels. So it is available, but it's not recommended. But it's a really lovely idea to start with 4 and then to drop to the 3 favourites when that becomes clear.
Do a lot of people do that? Do a lot of students
More
do
so
that?
this year, absolutely, yes. I think it's really hard narrowing down your GCSE choices to just 3. So, but there might be 4 very clear choices. So yeah, they're definitely more this year.
Okay, fantastic. You mentioned, Matt, that you run a course in hairdressing and also in health and social care.
Yes.
Maybe, Beth, if you're talking about courses, do students need to take other subjects if they take either of those courses?
Well, hairdressing is just a standalone course. So instead of any other A-level, students just take hairdressing because as well as the time spent on theory and practical work in the salon, there's also work experience outside of school in salons. With health and social care, it is available, as Matt said, in a single, double or a triple option. So students could opt to just do health and social care, or they could do it as a single or a double and take an additional A-level alongside.
Okay, thank you. So if you are thinking of applying to Christopher Whitehead, how do you apply? Start from scratch.
Okay, so all applications are done online, although there is an ability if people struggle to access the online application form for any particular reason, then they can request a paper copy by getting in touch with school. But you apply online, you can apply as of tomorrow morning. The Year 11 students that are in our school at the moment have actually already been sent the application form link to their school email accounts. So they could apply today, they could have already applied if they want to. You apply online, and in previous years, in non-coronavirus years, in any application to a post-16 college, you would be asked to submit predicted grades, because at this point of the year, generally speaking, students will know and staff will know that they're predicted a 7 for history, for example. Now, our courses, the same as any other courses elsewhere, have specific entry requirements, and those course entry requirements are visible on the course information pages on our website. But this year, obviously with year 10 into 11 having been out of education for that period of time, we're doing a series of mock exams with our own Year 11 students here after half term. That means that we will have a much more up-to-date predicted grades for those students after they've done those mock exams. As a result of that, if in this school or any other school, we will accept you applying with target grades or predicted grades, as long as in the interview you make it clear whether these are your targets or your predicted grades. Now, for our own students that come here, a report is being uploaded onto the electronic proformas that you'll be able to see that is exactly that, it's target grades, and those can be used as an intro.
Okay, so you're not at a disadvantage if you go to another school and they have a different system of mocks or at a different time of year, or? No,
absolutely not. And we know that what people apply with right now might be very different to how the year goes. People can have years where their grades increase. People can have years of difficulty where things take a dip. And we, for other schools as well, we ask for references. We work with the other schools, and we offer any offer of a place after an interview after the application form is submitted is conditional upon being reviewed on results day as well anyway. So whatever happens in the year, even if we think on paper somebody is maybe less likely to achieve the entry requirements for a course, we would advise accordingly and say we think these courses or at this institution or at another one would be appropriate for them. But then if on GCSE results day they actually get the requirements, then that would be enough to accept them onto the place.
Okay, fantastic. What's the capacity at Christopher Whitehead? How many students can you have in any one of the year groups?
Okay, so we've currently got 220 students in the sixth form. We could accommodate a sixth form of approximately 300 people. So we could have 150 in each year group without any need for further expansion.
Okay, fantastic. And when do applications have to be by? Is there a specific date?
Well, because the application process is open from now, we would urge students to apply as soon as possible, because it helps the curriculum deputy, Mrs. Clark, to put the option blocks together. And the more people that apply early, the more idea that we've got of who wants to study what. But ultimately, if the decision by the student isn't ready, if they're not ready until even GCSE results day, then that wouldn't be too late. Although it would be nice to think they were a bit more organised than that.
Okay. And when will you get the notification that you have got into sixth form?
So you will be on results day, GCSE results day in the summer. We would send, as soon as we've interviewed everybody throughout the year on set interview days, we will send conditional offers. And that is, as universities do, it is us saying, if you get the grades to get onto the courses that we've put on, then you have got a place. Now that doesn't require them to have met other criteria. It's done based on grades. Then in the summer, we then convert those conditional offers into firm or unconditional offers of places. Now, we also know at that point, and there was one of the other questions that we saw on here, was when do students themselves have to choose where they're going to go? Now, I'd love to be in a system where students had to tell us, like they do with universities, that they're coming to us, or that they've got something to lose if they don't. In reality, though, we're in a situation where students can decide on or after GCSE results day where they want to go. So, students might have applied to us and somewhere else, and in an interview they've said, well, yes, I think I'm going to come to your institution. On GCSE results day really is the time when the students have to make the choice, and it's the time when we convert those conditional offers into, yes, firm offer, you've got a place. If you haven't quite met the entry requirements, then we might change it to a revised offer. For example, in PE, for example, like I mentioned earlier, we might say, okay, well, you didn't quite hit the entry requirements for the A-level PE, but actually the entry requirements for the BTEC sport you have hit. We're happy to offer you a place on that course instead.
And just thinking about it, how are you going to conduct interviews? Are they going to be in person, or are you going to do Zoom interviews, or what will happen there?
We would love to do in-person interviews, face-to-face interviews. I think you can tell an awful lot, although things are very clearly different this year. So I think at the moment my plan would be to do face-to-face interviews with our internal students, but in a socially distanced way, and then working with other schools to see whether or not people are happy to do face-to-face interviews. In all likelihood at the moment, interviews with external students from other schools will be conducted online unless things change.
Okay.
And actually, during lockdown, we conducted quite a few telephone interviews with students.
Okay.
So we've already had a go at that. It's not new.
Oh, excellent. Okay. I think some of the next questions you've answered. There's one here about predicted grades and the entry process. So just talk us through, maybe Beth, what happens after you submitted an application? So somebody submits an application tomorrow. What's going to happen to it?
So the application form is received by Mrs. Simpkins, the sixth form administrator, and then she will send a letter to the student via email to thank them for the application and to let them know when they will hear from one of us about probably a telephone interview or interview day, depending on how we do that. And then following that, we would hopefully give a conditional offer to the student based on their subjects they're interested in.
Yeah.
If I could just add a little bit more as well on the subjects, we have we've changed the way we've done the application form in this year. So in past years, and many other colleges probably, students will be asked, or were asked here, to apply online to 3 or 4 different subjects. So if I'm a Year 11 student in October, I would be applying to English, history, French, biology. It'd be a very strange mix, but there we are. This year, what we've done is we've said we would like to work with the students to make that decision so that they make a more informed decision rather than sitting at home making a very quick snap decision at that point. Because what we found last year, maybe lockdown was slightly different, but we found that lots of people were changing their minds throughout the year. And it was partly because some students hadn't quite done enough research on the courses, the differences between psychology and sociology, for example, or between the BTEC and the full A-level, and there was a lot of shifting around. So this year, what we're asking students to do is to apply to broad groups of interest. So one of the groups of interest on the application form contains maths, biology, physics, chemistry, computer science, further maths. Now, there's a particular group of students that will tick that they are interested in those kind of students, those kind of subjects. They can also select saying, well, I'm also interested in English literature. That's in this group as well. That means that then when I, Mrs. Morgan, Miss Stevens, Mrs. Clark, or Mr. Morris, the people who tend to do the interviews, when we get the information and the application form, what we can see is roughly what areas these students are interested in. Then at interview, we will look at their current performance grades from whatever school they're in. We'll talk to them about what their aspirations are, about why they're interested in them, and about the differences between the courses. And in that interview, we'll come to an informed decision together about which ones of those courses they will be then put on the application to do.
So you're hoping to do that possibly to avoid that sort of pressure of a snap decision when you're applying and then worrying if you change your mind.
Yes.
Is that the reason behind it?
It is that. It's also to help explain to students in person the difference maybe between some of the courses that they won't be familiar with from GCSE. Yes. So students might think that something to do with politics, they might have a very fixed idea about what that is, but if we can more fully explain what that 2 years is going to look like, it might be something they're more or less interested in.
Absolutely.
And I think the example of psychology A-level or BTEC psychology is also a very good example. Yes. How would students know which of those to pick?
Yeah, so you're less likely to make a mistake and go on to a course that doesn't suit you, and then you need to change once you started it.
Yeah, absolutely. With psychology and sociology, a lot of students group those, as I've just done in this presentation. They group them together and they do both because they're new subjects. But actually, the profile of a student that would be suited to sociology is very different from the profile of a student that might be suited to psychology. And the interview then gives us a chance to discuss which one they actually do want to do, depending on where their interest lies. And it also means the ones that are unsure of what they want to apply for don't have to delay by thinking, well, I don't really know, because that can sometimes lead to people not applying. So we hope to take some pressure off the application process and then let us, with our expertise, advise people appropriately.
And that's going to be quite clear when they go onto the application form. It sort of guides you through. You don't have to sort of remember every single thing that you've just said.
Absolutely not.
It's going to guide you through, but that gives us a good idea. As you said before, you've alluded to the fact that we're in very strange times, aren't we? So will there be any leniency or consideration with the grades that students get, depending on what happens with GCSEs this year? Because we don't really know yet, do we?
No.
There's lots of unknowns. All I can do perhaps at the moment, we don't know what's going to happen throughout this year, or whether or not people in Year 11 are going to have grades that are based on a combination of exams and centre assessed grades. We don't know. We could hypothesise. All I can do is perhaps give an example of what we did this summer to allow people to understand that. So this summer, those of you that kept an eye on the news would know that there was huge disruption to the GCSE gradings. Schools graded the students as we did, and then the government algorithm equation changed people's grades to give a national picture. Now, we made the decision before the announcement to scrap that and just go with school grades was made. We made a decision at that point that we were going to ignore all of those grades that were produced by the exam board anyway, and we were just going to go with centre assessed grades as the entry requirements for our sixth form. Now, we know that there's some inconsistency maybe with how they are set, but actually schools have a rigorous process of setting those, and we have to say a member of staff who's taught this student for at the very least 2 years, if they're saying this person is a grade 6, then we would trust that over an exam system that was perhaps based on a computer program.
Okay.
So there is the leniency. That said, we also have to be honest and say, if a student in the first few weeks is clearly out of their depth with the subject, then we need to look at an alternative.
Okay, that's great. And if you get the grades, does that guarantee you the place?
Okay, so we look at, we had a question from somebody saying, you know, I'm applying from another school. If I get the grades, am I guaranteed a place over people that are at the school, for example?
Oh, yeah.
So there's oversubscription criteria that is on our admissions policy on our whole school website that actually says, you know, it's looking at distance from the school then if we're oversubscribed. And I have to say, actually, if you've got the grades and all else is level, then you've got the place.
Yeah.
But if we're into oversubscription criteria, and that is if we've got more than 150 people starting, well, that's an increase on 40 from previous years, so it's very unlikely. The vast majority of the decision is based on grades. That said, if we had somebody, to give an extreme example, if we had somebody in year 11 who was excluded from year 11, for example, and they managed to get the grades through being at another centre or something like that, then actually if they've been excluded from the school, then I can't readmit them as part of the sixth form because it is still part of the school. So that's a strange example of a case where actually the grades wouldn't be of greater importance than the wider circumstances.
But for the majority of students that
absolutely
are thinking about their grades, it's going to guarantee them a place. That's great. So with the students that you've had go through the system now, you've been up and running for a few years now, what sort of higher education have you noticed your students going to? What level of universities or what alternatives to universities have you seen?
Yeah, so we've had students going to universities up and down the country. We've got students on the south coast all the way up to northern Scotland, and we've got students now that have gone through our system, through the school, through universities, and are now coming back to Worcester. And indeed, this college, we've just appointed a member of staff that graduated from our sixth form 4 years ago now, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So people are going off to all different universities of all different levels as well. You know, the Russell Group top 24 universities, we have a huge number of students going to those. We have students going on to top courses such as medicine, dentistry. But I think it's if you'd have asked that question 10 years ago, then any sixth form would be judged basically by how many people went to university. I'm a great believer in the fact that things have changed a lot over the last few years, and now actually it's more about not just universities but apprenticeships, degree apprenticeships and so on. We've got some people applying for the degree apprenticeship in the police force. Well, that means that they can then starting salary in the police at £22,000. If they went to university for 3 years and then went into the police, their starting salary would be the same. But they would be paying through university as well. So it's a massive net gain going straight into the police apprenticeship. Last year, we had somebody who left us that we supported, and they've got an apprenticeship at GCHQ Security down in Cheltenham as well. So it's a changing world, and the apprenticeships for some parents that might be watching, parents might think that apprenticeships are something that you can maybe go into that are more vocational, that are less kind of academic than some of the A-levels. It's simply not true now. There are plenty of careers that you can get into in an apprenticeship you don't need a degree for. And actually, apprenticeships are harder to apply for than degrees. You know, universities are a business and want people to go into and want to recruit more people. Apprenticeship providers can often be a lot more discerning in who they appoint. Mm-hmm. So we're sending more and more people to apprenticeships as well.
I think it's worth probably saying here as well that we do have a dedicated careers advisor, don't we, that helps navigate students into the right courses, as well as the support that the sixth form offers.
Yeah, so Mrs. Watmore, the careers advisor, she helps the students enormously. And then we also have Mrs. Kewarden, the UCAS coordinator. So we've got, there's lots of very experienced staff to help students with whichever pathway they choose.
Yes, good.
Sorry.
So that also answers one of the questions that we have here. How do you support students applying for competitive university courses? So you've got Mrs. Kewarden. What about if the courses are really competitive, Oxbridge perhaps, or the Russell Group?
So there's a few things. So first of all, Mr. Mobley takes a fortnightly critical thinking skills class with students who are hoping to achieve those. It's called HE plus, so the higher university places. We also have a close relationship with Oriel College in Oxford and Christ College in Cambridge. We are part of their outreach programme. So they're liaison officers. They work with our students to help with skills that are specific for places that are maybe related to Oxford, Cambridge, medicine, dentistry and law.
We also make sure that they're interviewed by the right people as well. That if they're going for these competitive courses, then having interviews with people who they're not familiar with is also very, very important. So we're recruiting the right people in to give people interviews in those courses. So, for example, we've got a young lady currently in year 13 who's applying for Classics and English at Oxford. We actually have an Oxford academic from that discipline who's currently doing Zoom interviews with her on an ongoing period between now and the time when she might get her interview offer from Oxford. It's worth mentioning as well that we are working with other local secondary schools. I've literally an hour ago come off a video call with the heads of sixth form from various local colleges where we were discussing exactly that. And what we're doing is dividing people from our year 13s up and saying, we've got an applicant to this. Have you got a member of staff there that could give this person an interview? Because actually what people need for those competitive courses is the adrenaline and the exposure and experience of somebody helping them that they're not familiar with, because they're not going to know their interviewer on the day. And that's a crucial difference, I think.
Fabulous. Okay. I think probably we're going to move on to the sort of pastoral or extracurricular questions now. So obviously at the moment trips are very difficult, but what trips have happened in previous years that we're very much hoping would be able to be picked up after we reach the end of the COVID period the country's in?
My personal favourite is obviously the biology residential.
Yes.
First one went to South Wales, which is very important. We've been to Bishop's Wood for that since. Duke of Edinburgh Gold Award goes out. Actually, I think that's still going out, isn't it?
That still went out even in coronavirus. They went up the side of Snowdon before
Socially
Wales locked down.
distanced.
Socially distanced.
Yeah.
And so that still went on, absolutely. Yeah.
There's the geography week-long residential. Mr. Mobley and I take we go to the apprenticeship
National Apprenticeship Exhibition, various university open days.
Yeah.
We'd actually, if coronavirus hadn't happened, we'd actually got a sixth form trip to New York that was due to go ahead back in April. That unfortunately was cancelled. So that was about 12 of our sixth formers were due to go out to New York on an art and culture based trip. We will launch that again in the future when we're allowed. Yeah. At the moment, though, this year certainly, the advice from government is that we can't plan for these trips. So trips take a long time to plan. No insurance companies are covering them at the moment, and no academic educational trip providers are offering them. So as and when this changes, we can do that again in the future.
Did you have, there was a connection with we had quite a special contingency for the Holocaust?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Museum? Or?
Holocaust, yes. So the Holocaust Educational Trust, each year we send 2 of our students, and sometimes members of staff are lucky enough to go, but 2 of our students go off to Auschwitz on the Lessons from Auschwitz educational programme. It actually gives them credits towards a master's later on if they want to do that at university, but it's an experience where they have a seminar at a local university about the Holocaust, an orientation seminar, and then they get to go on a day-long, mentally and physically exhausting day, an emotionally exhausting day, but they get to go out and have a tour and a workshop at Auschwitz concentration camp and the local areas as well, before coming back and doing some reflections work on it in school.
So is that open to any student, or just students that have history and politics maybe as their base?
It's actually open to any students. You have to express a genuine interest in it, because it's incredibly popular. We keep it away from the history and politics department in a way, and we ask for applications to be submitted anonymously so that we can do it not based on personalities but based on the strength of the application.
Oh, that's interesting. So when students start here, do they have a personal tutor?
Yes,
Yeah.
so we have 12 personal tutors in the sixth form team, and each personal tutor has around 8 to 10 students from both year 12 and year 13. They used to do more work together. At the moment, not. We're keeping them separate. So they would be the first point of call, really. Mrs. Simpkins, who I've mentioned before, the sixth form administrator, she seems to be, she's always available for a chat. And then obviously myself and Mr. Mobley as well. But the first line of sort of support is the personal tutor team, yes.
Yeah, okay. What extracurricular or enrichment activities do you run?
I'll take this one because I do the fun stuff. So on a Wednesday afternoon, we have something called an enrichment session, which at the moment is split into 2. So on a week 1, students will do study skills, which may or may not lead to an EPQ, but they're just useful skills to have anyway as a sixth form student. And then on the second week, students choose to do something not linked to the curriculum or study skills at all. So for example, Mr. Mobley's doing the Couch to 5K. I run the charity committee. We've also got Iris magazine, which is the sixth form voice. We've got volleyball and football and netball, all sorts going on. And students can choose what they'd like to do, and then they can swap every term. So that's just enrichment. Duke of Edinburgh Gold, which we've already mentioned, I suppose also comes under the umbrella of enrichment because it's not curriculum linked. And fortnightly, we do something called information, advice and guidance, which is the sixth form equivalent of values and ethics. And in that, we give students information on apprenticeships, universities, bank accounts, financings generally, health, and of course they're all virtual again as well at the moment, but they're specifically tailored for year 12 and 13, where the information they need at this time.
Okay, and I see that big poster behind you advertising the Impetus programme. What is the Impetus programme?
Well, that's me too. Yeah. We had a great Impetus lecture today. So every Wednesday after enrichment, so it's lesson 6, 3:20 to 4:20, we have somebody coming in to speak. Well, they're not coming in at the moment. Again, it's virtual. And they deliver a lecture that may or may not be curriculum linked to the students. So today we had senior microbiologist from Worcester Royal Hospital, and he was speaking about his work in Sierra Leone, where he helped to diagnose Ebola. We've got a professor coming in from the Shakespeare Institute to speak about Othello. We have another professor from Birmingham talking about his life as a scientist. So they really, really varied. Is absolutely my passion, and every Wednesday this term has been filled with a really awesome speaker.
What do they give to the students? Why do students, you had a really good turnout today as well.
Yeah.
What's in it for the students?
Well, I think when you choose a course of study at A-level, it's because you're deeply interested in it. It's something that you love. So if you can then listen to something that is not, you don't have to sit an exam on it. You don't have to write, answer essay questions on it. You can just come and listen because you love it. It gives you a wider worldview, and also then the students do use the information they've heard and the people they've been speaking to or have been lectured by in their UCAS statements. It shows that they're more interested. They've gone over and above just a curriculum.
Yeah. Excellent. We're coming to the end of these questions that have been sent in. So the last question I have for you, perhaps Matt, what financial support is available for sixth form students and their families?
Okay, so there's 2 ways of financial support available for sixth form students. The first wave is the sixth form 16 to 19 bursary. Now in lower school, people talk about pupil premium or free school meals. It is a household income assessed and linked bursary at post 16 because the free school meals ends. But what this is discretionary bursary that we can use to support students that hit the criteria. Now the criteria is available on our website. If you look under policies, bursary policy, you will see this year's policy, 16 to 19 bursary, and it'll give you an idea of whether you're personally eligible as a family. But the students who are eligible to that bursary, they get all of the resources that they need for their courses. So we provide them, we put an order in for all of the texts and books, resources, lab coats, cameras for people doing photography. We supply them with a laptop if they haven't got one that's suitable for their post-16 study as well. Hairdressers, they get the hair kit, which is quite expensive actually if they have to buy it themselves. So that financial support there is available for us to spend on anything that benefits the student academically. That could actually be a contribution towards the Gold Duke of Edinburgh, for example, because we can make a case for that benefiting a student's applications for future and keeping them in education. There's also within that, there's another tier actually, which is non-discretionary. It is a guaranteed bursary. And again, that's on there with a guaranteed payment. It's online, you'll be able to see it. Students who are eligible for that are students who are currently in care, students who are care leavers, or are in receipt of benefits themselves as individuals in their own rights. So usually it's a case where the student has not got parental support. The second stream of support for students financially actually is a scholarship, and each year we're able to award 6 £200 scholarships to students who get the top GCSE grades.
Okay, that's comprehensive, thank you. So we've got a couple of questions come in. I think we're going to aim to take a little break, and we're going to advertise perhaps our new promotional video, aren't we? If you put a link in, Mr. Mobley. We'll be back in 5 minutes, and we'll aim to answer any more questions that we've had online. Yeah,
thank you. I will paste the link in now. We'll look at the questions as you're doing it. If you do look at this link, then my advice would be open it up in a separate tab so that it doesn't navigate you away from this video if you do intend to come back. And then afterwards we'll answer those questions. So if you want the link should now appear under my name, Matthew Mobley, in the chat, and that just takes you to a link of a video about 5 minutes long that gives you a flavour of our sixth form with people in it rather than just us sat at a camera.
Okay, so taking a 5 minute break.
5 minute break. We'll go off camera for 5 minutes.
100 people.
Okay, we will start in a moment to answer some of the questions that people have asked on the chat, and we aim to cover as many of them as possible. Before we do, I'd just like to take a moment to say a couple of things. That if after this presentation, when we finished it, if people have still got questions or very specific questions, then email sixthformat, as in the word, not the number, sixthformat, cwlc.email, or look at the website for our email address. And then we will field any questions and direct them and get back to people straight after that.
Yeah.
On Saturday, the 7th of November as well, we have the availability by emailing sixth format again to book in on a socially distanced tour of the sixth form facilities. Now, we ask for that to actually be for parents and students that are viewing us from other schools, actually, because unless they've only just joined year 11 and aren't used to the school, in the age of social distancing, we would rather have people that are just joining us who are not familiar with the school, and to limit that to one parent or carer and one student.
And we do need that booked in, really, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, you ready for some questions?
Yes.
I think so.
Okay. So on the socially distanced evening, are students and carers able to talk to teachers of different subjects to be able to help them? So if they can have a look on the website, but are they able to talk to any teachers on specifically in person?
I think if there was specific, so we've got the 7th of November, there isn't an evening as well. If there were specific subject questions that weren't addressed in the course information sheets on the website, then people are very welcome to email in, and we will definitely make sure it gets to the teachers who can answer that question best.
Okay.
Yeah, and look on the website. There are detailed course information pages, and also we're uploading videos presented by sixth form teaching staff as well that are designed specifically, not recruitment videos. Actually, what they're designed to do is to give advice. They're there in place of an open event where people come around and get that advice. So the science, for example, the BTEC science video done by the science department is very clearly directed at not recruiting people to BTEC science, but explaining the difference between that course and the A-level biology and chemistry.
Okay, I think that would be quite useful then. So when are the videos being uploaded?
They'll be on the website by the end of this week. We are, the day that I think that person questioning was referring to, the socially distanced day, is going to be just 4 members of leadership team, each taking a small socially distanced group around the facilities
so
and answering questions.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not a subject specific event, it's a tour.
Yep.
They can obviously ask, each member of staff doing those tours, and we'll be there as well, will be able to answer questions, but they will be general questions rather than subject specific.
That's clear, thank you. So going back to the idea about A-levels or BTECs, Catherine Browning asks, apart from the Oxbridge universities, do you think there is still a preference for candidates with just A-levels rather than a mix of A-levels or BTEC, or just BTEC?
Okay, I'd be lying if I said that the Oxbridge universities, Oxford and Cambridge, gave equal weighting to these things. Actually, if you look at the vast majority of people doing Oxbridge, they will be straight A-level based students, so you'll be in competition with them.
Elsewhere,
The reason that the universities changed recently from a grades-based entry system to a points-based entry system is because they created a new tariff, and parents can see it if they Google UCAS tariff, and you'll be able to see there it's the university's entrance system's way of making a direct comparison between the BTEC and applied courses and the A-level courses. So actually there's equal weighting there of those courses, and students applying to the vast majority, apart from Oxford and Cambridge, to the vast majority of universities applying with a mixed bag is as I'm going to informally call somebody applying with maybe 2 A-levels and a BTEC, or 2 BTECs and an A-level, where it's not just all one or the other, is something that's increasingly done and not penalised against.
Good. Okay.
If the course is right for the student, then they've got to look at the ones that they're going to get better grades on, and that's right for them. So if the BTEC science course, for example, they need a science qualification to go and do paramedic science at a university, well, BTEC science works for that. And if you've got a student that wants to go into paramedic science, they may be better suited on the BTEC science course. If they want to do a medicine course, they need the A-level biology, for example.
Also, for that example, I think the style of assessment is really important. So for BTEC science, it's 60% coursework and 40% exam. Now, if you're doing A-level biology, chemistry or physics, it's 100% exam. So you have to think about what's best going to showcase your abilities, and it might be a BTEC over A-level.
But it doesn't exclude you from going for those university courses.
No.
Yeah. No. Okay. Are the BTEC results out first before the A-levels, and if so, does it therefore give the BTEC students an advantage for applying for places at university? Which I think is a good question. That's from Meg.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting question. Actually, this year the BTEC results were a lot later than the other ones.
Yeah.
Now, the universities don't make their decisions until until A-level results day. So there is no extra advantage or disadvantage gained.
So usually BTEC are before?
They're not necessarily before, but it doesn't make a difference. The universities make their decision on A-level results day and not before, and they make a decision on the whole application. Because you also have to assume that, there are some students that have already got A-levels as well. There are students you might have a bilingual student in the sixth form that's already got an A-level in the language that they study. So they just make a snapshot judgment based on the GCSE results, A-level results, sorry.
Dan asks, are there any specific courses in computing, or is that just a general subject?
We run computer science here. At the moment, we may end up broadening that, but at the moment our curriculum is computer science.
An A-level
in computer science, yeah, absolutely.
So presumably, if you go onto their website, he'll be able to find out what he wanted to about the course. Okay.
All the information about A-level computer science is on there.
The course information sheets are actually really detailed. They're only 2 sides of A4 to read, but it'll say the exam board that's being used and the modules that the student will cover over the 2 years. So you'll also have a really nice flavour of what's to come, the entry requirements, whether the exam board complements the one they've sat at GCSE or whether it's a different one. So lots of great information there. There's also the email address for the head of that department.
Further questions.
If there's further questions specific to the course,
So the first port of call, though, would be the website.
Yes.
Okay, Karina asked, would you say that taking applied law BTEC, Spanish and English Lit is a good mix of courses for sixth form?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a sort of how long is a piece of string?
Yes.
If those are your courses, they're going to be really good for you, aren't they?
Yes.
That's your bag.
I would say absolutely that. You should take the courses that, you're strong at, and actually you won't know that you have a strength in law, but you can look at the skills. So if you're a strong linguist, you should absolutely take languages at post 16. It's a very sought after course, works very well alongside the likes of English Lit and history. And I would say those would be a very appealing set of subjects. I would put in one caveat, actually, is that the applied law course is brilliant. I would want to do the applied law course if I went back to sixth form. But as odd as it sounds, for students who actually want to do a law degree, the universities would prefer somebody not to have applied law, not to have A-level law, but to have, say, Spanish, history and English, or Spanish, politics and English as 3 A levels rather than law. The law university courses prefer to teach people all of the law from scratch rather than have anything delivered at post-16.
Now that actually answers another question from Meg then, because she was asking what law course options do you offer? And I think that's something a lot of people find out later on, isn't it? That law is not necessarily a channel into a law degree.
Yeah.
No. It's an interesting A-level course or an interesting post-16 course. The reason we took the decision to offer the BTEC applied law is because we weren't going to be advising the people that are applying for law courses at universities. We weren't going to be advising them to take it, and we knew that the A-level law was in a similar boat as well.
Yeah.
And the way the new application process will work, we'll be able to have these conversations with students because they won't necessarily have applied for law. They will apply for a group of subjects, and when they come in, we can find out their aspirations and then guide them appropriately.
Ah, yes. Okay. If a student achieves a higher number of GCSEs at grade 5 or above, do they tend to do 3 A levels rather than do BTEC? Or is BTEC just as high a sort of input?
I'd say it's a real mixture actually at the moment. I was speaking to somebody today about what she's going to do next, and she's doing 2 A levels and a BTEC. I think the more BTEC options that we offer, the more students will be able to choose a mixture.
I mean, yeah, we're offering them because they're really good courses, and I think it has to be personal preference. If the 3 A levels is right for you, then that's right, and you'll know if you're good at it and interested in it and you have a strength in it, then great. But actually, if you're really interested in one of the BTEC courses as well, that's the right course for you.
So it's not necessarily that the highest grade people definitely all go for A level.
No,
absolutely not. No.
Okay, there's a question here about police detective courses. Now that sounds awesome, but it's possibly more to do with courses that are suitable for going into the police, perhaps.
Yeah, at the moment, I would say that to get into the police, I'd refer back to my previous comment about the police degree apprenticeship. You need 62 UCAS points, 68 maybe, UCAS points to get into a police degree apprenticeship. That equates to, 2 reasonable grades at A level. And that course doesn't require you to have specific subjects. So you could look at things and say, actually, psychology is really good for going into police. Politics might be something that's really good for going into the police. But actually, to get into the police degree apprenticeship, it's not course specific. You just need points.
Good. Okay, that's useful. If you do not get the specific entry grade for the subject you really want to study at A level, are there any exceptions to entry to the course?
Right, this is a tricky one, but I would say the reason that the heads of department set the minimum entry requirements where they are is because they are very well aware of the step up from GCSE to A level. The A in A level stands for advanced. It is an advanced course of study, and if you're not already working on the in the old style sort of A, B grade at GCSE, then you're not going to manage the step up in workload and also understanding needed for A level. So there may be exceptions, but they are rare, and there is a reason for that. We can't apologise for not being able to offer courses at A level for students who come in asking on 3s or 4s because they just wouldn't manage.
No. Okay.
But there may be alternatives.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, something that I forgot to ask earlier on. So thank you, Lucy, for sending this again. What support is available for those students that have specific learning difficulties, like dyslexia, for instance?
Okay, so I've been giving that question that we saw earlier on some thought, and I'd say first and foremost, what we have to stress is that this is a school sixth form, and that our teaching staff are used to teaching across 3 different key stages. So as a teacher of somebody who teaches across 3 different key stages, teaching somebody with additional needs and with, for example, dyslexia within my class is not something that is new or any different at post-16. And if they're academically able enough to engage with the courses, then not just but as a teacher, my professionalism and good teaching pedagogy practice that has been honed throughout key stage 3 and 4, dealing with mixed ability classes, means that I can approach that and actually support that student in that class just the same as I would if that person was in year 11. From an exams and admissions point of view, any access arrangements students can be reassessed here for the next step of access arrangements, meaning that any additional support or access arrangements such as extra times, readers, scribes, for example, can still be put in place for post-16 examinations. We also have smaller class sizes than we do at Key Stage 3 and 4, which means that actually the ratio between the amount of time that a member of staff can spend with that student is greater at post-16 as well than it is anywhere else down the school. And finally, we have Mrs. Kewarden, who's our sixth form learning coordinator, who works one-to-one often with students in terms of study skills and accessing things. So if we get a student who's doing 3 essay-based courses but is struggling with accessing long pieces of text or writing in a specific way, she, as a trained English teacher, actually works with those students to hone those skills as well.
You said finally, but it's not quite finally, because last year we had a student who achieved very highly at in all 3 A levels, and she had special software that she used on her laptop she was dyslexic, and also did it read the text to her?
Yeah, it's so assistive technology.
Yes, that's right. So there is loads of help available.
Okay, fantastic. The links that you said you have with Oxbridge, so with Oriel College and Christ College, Cambridge, are they attached to any particular courses? Somebody's asked here, Anna's asked about modern foreign languages at Oxbridge. Is the liaison for any course?
It is. Would you like to answer first?
Yes. All of the different colleges in Oxford and Cambridge have an outreach officer. So Oriel College is the outreach for the West Midlands. And so when her name's India, when India comes in to speak with us, she talks about Oxbridge generally. So she talks, sorry, that's just Oxford. So she talks about Oxford generally in all of the courses, and she can help with writing personal statements that are tailored for that course.
Okay. Fantastic.
When we went down to Oxford last year, organised by India, she actually linked people up with all the different members of staff from all of those different courses, didn't she?
And it is the same for Cambridge. So Christ's College, they look after the West Midlands area, and they offer the same thing. And they would have been residentials, wouldn't they, this year? But of course they got cancelled.
Okay. Just 2 more questions then. Do students have a full timetable?
So no, actually, for the first time in their school careers, students have some flexibility. Part of it is structured, so they have 3 subjects, for example, and they would have 9 hours of lessons per subject taught per fortnight. And then they would have a block of 9 supervised study periods where they are working in the sixth form study spaces, supervised by a member of staff, so that we actually know that they're getting the academic support that they need and to bridge that gap between a full timetable and more freedom. But they also have free periods as well where they can actually do their own thing in that. People tend to not leave and go very far because there's a nice cafe out there for them to spend their downtime in. But they do have some of their own time for the first time, and that we help them to structure it. And
of course, the sixth form day is later than the year 7 to 11 day, so we don't start until 9:40, and then we have an extra hour on the end of the day instead. So it's a 9:40 till 4:20 day. So although you wouldn't necessarily have a 3:20 to 4:20 lesson, but of the 36 hours spread over the fortnight, you would be in between those times. So it's a later start, later finish too.
Fantastic. Last question of the evening, and this is a good one. It's from Sean. Is the likelihood of a course running based on the number of people that apply, or are courses all guaranteed to go ahead once they've been advertised?
Okay, so being completely honest from the very start, we hope to run all courses. However, as you've alluded to, Sian, there is a financial viability that has to be taken into consideration in terms of ratio of members of staff and students. So whilst we hope to run all courses, what we will do is we will look at the numbers of people on courses throughout the spring term. And if we think that a course is not looking viable by that point, and actually that only happened to, it's happened to one course in the last 2 years, where in the spring, as soon as we realised that we simply hadn't got the applicants to run this course, I phoned up the parents and the students of the students that had actually applied for that course. It was only 2 students, and tried to find out what they wanted to do, whether or not they were likely to, how likely they were to want to do that course, or whether it was their 4th subject, and actually advise accordingly. We did have to pull one course, but both students that had applied for it were perfectly happy doing another course as well.
Okay, I've just sent the last message, thanking everyone for attending our online course. If you two would like to sign off, like the 2 Ronnies, then please do.
Or can we wave?
Yeah,
You can wave.
thank you very much. If anybody does have any further questions, please feel free to email in at sixthform@cwlc.email, and we will get back to you as soon as we can. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good night.
Goodbye.